If you follow my work, you know that I am pursuing a core teaching that I find from antiquity in religions and mythologies. One core teaching. That includes Buddhism, Taoism, and Christianity, or the teachings of Jesus, actually. I don't want to say Christianity. Christianity is kind of a big umbrella. I want to stick with just the teachings of Jesus. And I would like to qualify what I said here just a little bit. I think there's a lot of people that are Christians that are confused about that. What do you mean the interpretation of Jesus? We know what he says. And I'm going to suggest that there are very cryptic ways that lessons were taught, and they're taught in verbal language that is very unique to each teacher and their time and their culture and their place. Jesus taught in parables, but when he wasn't teaching in parables, he's still teaching in cryptic verse. All of it is cryptic verse. Every bit of it is cryptic verse. It has to be treated that way. When we look at interpretation and people doing interpretation and they're not following rules, what are they doing? They're just looking at it and going, what could that mean? You know, flipping over tables means that that Jesus gets mad and will show violence, which means that I can get mad and show violence. That's how they interpret that. And then the whole one about it's not enough to love your friends and family because even your enemy does that, you know, but love your enemy too. They'll dismiss that one. That's what verse is that? Yeah, that's not there. People are using the Bible and grabbing verses without really using a fixed interpretation process. And if you use a fixed interpretation process, all that deviation goes away. And I'm doing this as a non-Christian. I'm doing it as a spiritual seeker that understands that at the core, the masters are nesting something in an esoteric manner using a secret method that we can observe. We can find out what that is. We can see it. We can replicate it. And what I'm going to suggest is I'm going to use a very fixed process that we can all use. I'm going to use it on the Tao Te Ching. I'm going to use it on the Dhammapada real quickly. And I'm going to use it on Jesus's verses from the Sermon on the Mount. And what we're going to find is that all three of them are teaching the same thing. But let's get there. First of all, the versions I'm going to be using is the Stephen Mitchell Tao Te Ching, and I'm just going to do like one verse from there, just to show how it works. The Dhammapada, I will be using the Friedrich Max Mueller translation, and I'll be using the NRSV translation for Jesus's work. All right, and remember, this is esoteric, secret. We have to get it on our own, and we don't need anything more than our own minds and our ability to look for truth and dismiss Bravo Sierra. Okay, first of all, how are we going to treat this? We have to put ourselves in a certain position, and I'm going to start with the Tao Te Ching, and let's put ourselves 2,500 years ago in China, and we're hurt. We're looking for help. We go up to the mountaintop, way up high, to find the master. Master Lao Tzu, please, what is the meaning of life? We're hurt. We're looking for an answer. We need the master. There's the master right there, the Tao Te Ching. I walk up to the master and say, what is life about? Why am I this way? Why does life suck? And right in the very first verse, it's going to start telling me what I need to hear. It's going to tell me in a way that is cryptic. It's not going to be in plain language. There's a couple of reasons for that. Number one, plain language is very difficult to do. It's turning inward and finding out what hurts you and addressing it. People don't want to do that. So they're not going to pass that teaching along either. This is really for the person who goes, I have the courage and I'm the kind of person that's going to take this path. I'm sick and tired of my life and I'm going to make it better. Everybody get out of the way. This is a very individual path going inward. At any rate, so that's a part of it. You have to put it in such a way that it's going to travel, but there's another part of it too, and that's the difference between academic knowledge or experiential knowledge. Academic, you could say, I've studied how to drive a car and I know how to do it now, but you've never gone through the motions. You haven't gone through it. And you know, at first you have to think about everything you do. It's very academic. Your knowledge is academic at that point. When it's experiential is when we drive cross country, talking to our buddies, making all of the exits, doing all the things necessary without even paying attention anymore. It's happening in the background. It is now a part of who and what we are. Processing the mystery verses, the mysterious sounding verses, figuring them out wires our brain. It actually helps us connect neural pathways that help us become a part of the teaching, not just know the teaching, but oh, now I live the teaching. It's a part of who and what I am. So figuring these things out is supposed to be done. It's tricky, figure it out. It's also worded in such a way that it's going to travel around as some mysterious thing. People are going to love it and hang on to it. I've had people literally tell me that you can never understand this, that it is so mystical that you can never understand it. And I just say, thanks for carrying it for the rest of us that know better than that. Somebody nested something in here using a technique, and they put it in there for us to find. When you say you can't find it, you've cut yourself off to accessing it. They did not possess mental capabilities that we don't possess. They possessed other things we don't have. They had a lot of time. And this was a storytelling culture. We don't quite get that either. Back then, yeah, you pass things along verbally. Okay, so what else? So this is my guru. This material is going to be my guru. If I go to Tibet and I've got the same thing, I'm going to learn the same thing from Buddha. It's going to be the same stuff nested in here. All right. These two are also of a certain genre, a story style that is telling you life is in your hands. You must resolve your issues, your flow in life, the way you are, your lack or not of nirvana, the happiness in life, the things you have in life are in your hands completely. You must turn inward and address these things. When you go to this kind of a genre, the same material is there, the same teaching is there. However, it's carried in such a way that instead of telling you that you must turn in and do it, it's telling you, oh, turn it over to a higher power and let it go that way. So there's going to be some stylistic differences in the way that it is being carried, despite the fact that as we move along, you will see as we use this process, all of that stuff strips away, and what is at the core is going to be the same teaching. So let's go right into the Tao Te Ching, and what I want to say next is this is about me. This is about my life. Absolutely. Where from the day I'm born on. Let's read it through all the way first, just to get an idea of how cryptic it sounds just to start with. The Tao that can be told is not the eternal Tao. The name that can be named is not the eternal name. The unnameable is the eternally real. Naming is the origin of all particular things. Free from desire, you realize the mystery. Caught in desire, you see only the manifestations. Yet mystery and manifestations arise from the same source. This source is called darkness. Darkness within darkness. The gateway to all understanding. All right, I'm going to keep reminding us what we're doing so that we can kind of continue to build this mental framework. We just sat down, we just searched for a lifetime, found the master, sat down and said, my God, everything is horrific. What is life about? And this is what he says. And we're like, what now? What that ties us to actually is the understanding that this is about us. We can begin interpretation right there, understanding that this is an answer to my question about my life, or you, or anybody who is on this path, that this is going to be applicable to anyone who asks the master that question. If we start there, that gives us kind of a hook and point to realize this is about me. And I already know, I'm just going to jump ahead and tell you that this is about my beginning. It's the very start of the book. It's the start of my life. It's the start of the teaching, and it's about the start of myself. So this is all going to be relative to the beginning of the life of anybody who found Lao Tzu and asked him that same question. We're going to get the same answer because we come about in the same way. All right, let's go ahead and start analyzing this and see what there is. First of all, everything is analogous and everything is going to play out in the psyche. I'm going to do some things transitional-wise with the verse here that might seem odd at first, but as we go along, you'll catch on and see what's happening. And everything is going to be based in mental processes. It will be. Even spiritual experiences are going to be based in mental processes. When we get done, we should be able to interact with everything and affect a change in our life if we're interested in taking the steps to actually go through these. We decode them, then we find out what they mean. Once you find out what they mean, then you decide whether or not you're going to apply it. And if you apply it, then you experientially have a change in life. That's why it's a very personal and individual thing. People leading you to salvation are looking outward. They're taking one of the many paths going outward. The inward path is yours alone. And that's another reason it's just not for everybody. Yeah, it's a difficult thing. You have to almost have the right personality and life experiences and everything else for this to make sense. Okay, everything is analogous and it plays out in the psyche. The Tao in this case is a way of life. A Tao is a flow. That's basically what it means, the way, the flow, how things function. And that is a good term. There is a destination in all of the material. We always have to stay on course. And in this case, what we're doing is looking to have a different flow in life, a different life experience. And the Tao is going to be relative to that. When we get to Buddha's work, we're going to see that that's nirvana. There's a mental state of being we're looking for. The Tao here, that's going to be based in mental states. When we get to Jesus's work, we're going to see that we're looking to have the kingdom of heaven within, that there are mental states being held in analogous terms, and that the Tao right here is going to be what that is. We're looking not to get into the Tao. We are always in the Tao. You're never out of the Tao. Sometimes the flow is just bad. It hurts. It's depressing. You're still in the Tao. We want to change our Tao. We want to flow at a higher level, a different feeling. Okay, so this starts off, the Tao that can be told is not the eternal Tao. The way that can be told is you're beginning to experience life and give it names. It is no longer eternal. It's going to become limited to what you name it. But let's continue on. This is about me. Again, the Tao that can be told is not the eternal Tao. This is in my mind. The name that can be named is not the eternal name. This is telling me to leave things unnamed and nebulous, because what happens next, the unnameable, is the eternally real. Perfect. However, now we run into trouble. Naming is the origin of all particular things. This would line up to first sin if you went into Genesis. Naming is the origin of all particular things. What that means is that we are naming, and the origin of our life experience is based on that. And what that literally means is that we have a personal experience in life. We decide the quality of that at an emotional level. We store it away as a memory and as an emotional state, and it is beginning to be created. We are planting seeds. We are creating the origins of the things in our life by giving them names, by having an experience. That's it. It's just an experience. If it's a happy thing, that happens. If it's a hurtful thing, that happens. All of it happens, regardless. This is how we come about. We start out empty, devoid. You can become anything. But now what happens, we start becoming products of our life experiences. And we can infer that through here. Because if we're naming things, we're having experience, we're classifying them something. Oh, this is me going through life. Got it. Free from desire, you realize the mystery. Desire, mystery, realize, free. These terms have to continually shift. They don't always mean what they say. When they're playing out in the psyche, desire is an emotional, I want something. When you get into the psyche, you got to let that go. It's not what we want anymore. Free from desire. Desire is what we're clinging to. Desire is hanging on to something. I desire my pain. I desire my anger. I desire my shame. We don't really want those, but we're hanging on to those. If we are free of that and we're not hanging on to anything, we realize the mystery. We realize the flow in life. Whatever happens is the good things that just come up. It's going to be, it'll emerge. Caught in desire, you see only the manifestations. This is telling us that what we hang on to now, we continue to emerge, it emerges all the time. We're now manifesting our life caught into the things that we're clinging onto. And if we stop and spend a lot of time thinking about that and considering all the implications, this is cause and effect. So for interpretation, we have to continue to conceptualize. What are they doing as we're functioning with these things? And this is the same as having a seed planted and then something emerges from it continuously from the nature of the same seed. And that kind of stuff, that whatever we have heard about, and we should at some point in time experientially be able to look and say, yes, I do have this continual problem that acts out, and I think it stems from this event back here that is not resolved. If we can see that, we're onto it. It is that event that has to be resolved in order for the cycles to cease. That's teaching us that right here. Think it through. Remembering we're supposed to figure it out, and that in doing that, in figuring it out until you're like, oh, I got it. By then you're actually living it. You're not just knowing it or understanding it or grasping it or being able to pass it along. You are actually living that experience. And you know what? Keep plugging in these little things too. This is 2,500 years ago. We don't read, we don't write. There's no media. We're communicating verbally. We tell stories, we think, we sing. Yeah, that's it. When we're off alone, we're thinking. We don't empty our headspace these days. They had time we don't have. We don't give ourselves. Think about that. This was not so hard for them. It shouldn't be hard for us. We just don't take the time. Then it goes on and says, yet mystery and manifestations arise from the same source. This source is called darkness. So what this is saying is that everything that we're experiencing in life, whether we like it or whether we don't like it, is from the same source. If we're looking outward, we're not going to find it. That's not the source. All of the things come from within. We need to turn inward. The source is called darkness. We don't know that place. It's the emergent place from where we come from. Darkness within darkness, the gateway to all understanding. Gateway, we have to turn inward. There's a lot packed into this right here, but here it's telling us that you will become a product of your life experiences, how you name them and how you hold them. And as long as you continue to hold on to them, they continue to manifest. And if you let free of them, then you will be free from them. You will experience the mystery of life as opposed to the continual manifestations of the things that you cling to. But that all of that originates from the same source. We need to look inward and not outward for the source. Boom, right there. Now, let's go look at Buddha for a second. I'm going to read verse 1 and 2 together. They belong together. They're part of what is called the dual verses. So within this is showing duality. We saw that in Lao Tzu's work when he said, free from desire, you realize the mystery, and caught in desire, there's the manifestation. So there was duality right there being shown. And here we see it in a different way. But let's go ahead and read through the whole thing. And you know what? I bet some of this starts looking recognizable. Look for cycles and things like that happening. All that we are is the result of what we have thought. It is founded on our thoughts. It is made up of our thoughts. If a man speaks or acts with an evil thought, pain follows him as the wheel follows the foot of the ox that draws the carriage. And number 2, all that we are is the result of what we have thought. It is founded on our thoughts. It is made up of our thoughts. If a man speaks or acts with a pure thought, happiness follows him like a shadow that never leaves him. Okay, let's start at the top. First of all, we have the idea that everything about us is mental. All that we are is the result of what we have thought. What does that tell us right there? Everything about our life experiences and the way we live life is based in thought process. It's mental. It is founded on our thoughts. It is made up of our thoughts. It's the way we think about life, the quality in which we view life, and the manner in which we see things with our life experiences that's going to dictate the quality of life. Now, this is where we have to stop and look at a comparison here. This is where the interpretation becomes tricky. We're looking for conceptualized ideas here. So here we have the idea that all we are is the result of what we have thought, wherein Lao Tzu, he said the same thing when he said, naming is the origin of all particular things. The thinking process is where we begin, is how we begin. And those are both very viewable right there conceptually, even if they don't sound like it in the verbiage when you're looking outwards. Once you turn them inwards and translate those analogous terms to something that belongs in the psyche, suddenly, yes, we are products of the way we maintain our life experiences. The emotional and memory quality of the way we hold onto our life is what creates our life. Again, analogs here, and this is playing out in the psyche, remembering all of that. If a man speaks or acts with an evil thought, pain follows him as the wheel follows the foot of the ox that draws the carriage. Again, this sounds like if you don't interpret it in the psyche, it sounds like you could just say, well, I don't speak or act with an evil thought, but I still have bad stuff that happens. What's the matter? You look at it and go, it doesn't really work. It doesn't translate in all cases to the physical world. So again, caution. We've got to be very careful with the analogs. The analogous terms are the ones that are flexible, that go all over the place. And that's what we're running into right here. If we go back and look at this again, if a man speaks or acts with an evil thought, you think of that and go, I am not an evil person. Everything I've ever had happen is just because of bad stuff happened to me. Or maybe I've done bad things. It depends on what you have going on. Sometimes we've done evil things and we later go, oh my God, I have to go make amends. But this is not just that. You are looking at anything that continually cycles out. This you could have been a victim and you were abused, hurt, molested, raped, something like that. And at that moment in time, you store that away, and that right there is going to qualify as an evil thought. Again, it's analogous, and we have to divorce ourselves from what we know as the definitions. What this is something that is evil for you. It is something that acts out, that creates evil in your life. It isn't about you being evil. It is about something else that is evil that you're carrying with you, which is now this memory and this experience and the pain and the hurt of it that continues to act out. And what do we see happening here? We make ourselves component parts of the story if it lends itself in that way. And we are the ox drawing the carriage, pulling our life behind us, and pain follows. That wheel just continues to turn around and around. So we see cyclical pain happening right there based on something that was put away that is hurt, and that continues to emerge. And as we move on to the next one, all that we are is the result of what we have thought. It's founded on our thoughts. It's made up of our thoughts. So those are identical. It's telling us no matter what, whether it's positive or negative, it's based in thinking. If a man speaks or acts with a pure thought, happiness follows him like a shadow that never leaves him. And a pure thinking, in this case, we have to do the same thing with it. You want your mind purified. You want where this location is in your mind, where all of this stuff is put away, that you're like, yeah, I'm not ever dealing with that stuff. That's the problem right there. That's not pure thinking. It's really like having stuff jammed in your eye, the third eye closed, a beam in your eye, those sort of things. Having your mind's eye full of judgments that creates the illusion of your life, continually comes through those filters and creates your life that way when they don't have to. It's based in thinking processes. If a man speaks or acts with a pure thought, happiness follows him like a shadow that never leaves. What we have here, once you empty all that out, it's no longer cyclical. Look at that, the shadow that never leaves him. The cycles quit once we get rid of the things that cause us to continually cycle. And that's not exactly true. There could be good cycles, happiness, different things like that, events that happen. There will always be cycles. This is very relative to you being told by the master what you need to start with when you say, Master, what is the matter with me? What is the matter with my life? How come it doesn't work? This is the first thing we have to know, how we came about. Okay, I'm sure most people have heard this. Have you? The idea of Buddha seeking emptiness. This is it right here. It's like, what does that mean? What does it seek emptiness? And that is just being devoid of all of the things that we hang on to that continually hurt us. That's the emptiness we're looking for to achieve nirvana, happiness within, and that's what Buddha's teaching right here. Make sense? That's how it's all going to work. You can see that as I extract from both of them conceptually, they're teaching the same thing. There's no difference between Taoism and Buddhism. What I want to do now is go on to Jesus' work, and I'm going to tell you that I'll treat it exactly the same way. I know it's in a different genre. It is not the style that is you do this, it's turn it over. That's the outer case. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to turn it over to somebody else. What I'm going to do is interpret it in the same way and see what emerges. Let's go ahead and step right into it, and we'll begin with the Sermon on the Mount. Okay, there are layers of this I don't want to get into because it's just too deep perhaps, but let's do the overview. When Jesus saw the crowds, he went up the mountain, and after he sat down, his disciples came to him, and he began to speak and taught them, saying. So right there we see Jesus went to an elevated place. There's the master on the mountain right there. Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of God. All right, we need to identify spirit. Spirit is going to be the mental process. And here's why I say that. We have to, again, infer and think it through. Poor in spirit. What are we looking for here? We're looking to be devoid of something. What is spirit? Spirit, we today think of this as some sort of an energy being, something that lives outside or beyond us and whatnot. And there's a variety of things on that. The question becomes this: is how do you heal a spirit? What do you do with a bad spirit? What if you're hurt? How do you rectify that? What do you do? How do you interact with the spirit that is hurt? How did it get hurt? Was it born that way? What's happened? And if we look at life, what we realize is that we have become products of our thinking, and that whatever we're acting out in the background is based in that thinking, based on what is automatically us, and based on the things that we haven't resolved, based on things that we're aware of, based on things that we're not aware of. All of that. That if we're walking down the road to Damascus and talking and herding our sheep, that we can walk the whole way without remembering that we're walking to Damascus and that we are herding our sheep. We're talking about the girl at the well or whatever. And we understand that there is something in the background happening, that when we're not paying attention, that is there. We know what that is today, and we've been talking about it already. They're calling it something different here. They're calling it spirit. That's going to be an analog for the same thing, though. Whether there's a spirit or not is not how you interpret the material. So what I'm doing here is calling spirit poor in spirit. What do we want? What did we just say about Buddha? You are seeking emptiness, devoid of. You want to be purged of all of this thinking that has got you living a life that is not okay. All of this stuff that has happened to us, all the stuff that we believe, all of our convictions, all of that has to be let go. Poor in spirit is devoid of those things. And theirs is the kingdom of heaven. For theirs is the kingdom of heaven. So kingdom of heaven here is analogous for that state of being. So right here we're learning that we want to be devoid of our mental processes, because that is how we're going to live a good life. Does that sound familiar? Blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted. Again, we have to turn that inward. If we mourn outward, we'll be comforted up to a point, but you can continue to mourn and things continue to happen. At some point in time, you realize this is not 100%. It sounds like it could be, but there are instances, if you think it through, you go, you know what? It doesn't apply to everybody. There are people out there that are being hurt every day and that are mourning every day. And are they feeling better? They're caged. They're prisoners. There's something like that. There's a point where you go, no, this breaks down. It doesn't apply to everybody. It can't be right. So you play it out in the psyche and you realize what you're needing to mourn are the things that you're carrying inside of you that are hurt, that you're not going to heal if you don't mourn. You're not going to become poor in spirit. And I'm going to say poor in spirit if you, just real quickly, if you go to Luke and look for the same kind of shortened block of this work, it's going to just say, blessed are the poor, for theirs is the kingdom of God. And that sounds like, oh my gosh, I'm supposed to be physically poor. All of these are spiritual teachings. You translate every one of them in the psyche. This is where you look at it and go, this is why you don't deviate on how you manage the interpretation of the verse. Every one of them plays out. They're all about the psyche. They're all about the soul. They're all about the self. You don't have to say that. But at any rate, what does that mean? Yeah, we have to heal ourselves by ridding ourselves of the things that we are hurt by. When we mourn out, those things will be comforted. Blessed are the meek, for they will inherit the earth. Again, we play it out in the psyche. What is the earth? The earth is not planet Earth. The earth is my life experience, is my earth. What I classify as my daily experience. When I get up and I see the planet and what is going on, that is earth. Meek is how you handle it. Aggressive and going out there and fighting things, what happens? Meek is like fasting from the world, letting go of things, disconnecting from all of the stuff that we're hanging on to and that we're aggressive over. It's being stuck in traffic, and instead of getting mad and getting amped up, it's going, you know what, it doesn't matter. I'm going to be happier if I don't fight something that isn't going to matter anyway. All I'm going to do is just get angry. Those kind of things. Meekness means meek towards yourself, but meek towards the way you manage life. And that doesn't mean be meek over helping somebody. This is a very personal, this is how you heal yourself, how you live your life. It doesn't mean you meekly watch somebody abuse somebody else. That's not it. This is a very personal, this is how I resolve my life. Okay, from there we move on then to, blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they will be filled. Okay, righteousness is what? It's an analog. Remember, everything is analogous. Every once in a while, the analogs will be direct. Every once in a while. You could say that I need to fast. And in the physical world, that means don't eat. And in the spiritual world, that means don't consume, don't take things in mentally. Consuming is just the opposite. And consuming bad stuff and good stuff works the same way. That one just, no matter what, it works. Naked is not. Naked is something you could say, well, in the physical world, I don't want to be in public and be naked. That's not, I'll go to jail. I'll get arrested for that. That's, shame and all kinds of stuff. It is. It's shameful. You don't want to stand naked in front of a crowd. Everybody looking at the naked people. Okay. In the spiritual world, it's the opposite. You do want to be naked. You don't want to be covered. You don't want to have garments over you. That's analogous to hiding something. I have shame and I've got it covered. It's not going to come out. So we have to be careful with the analogs. They're going to be malleable. We have to look at how they play out in the psyche conceptually, and that's how we'll resolve them. So righteousness is what? Righteousness means we're looking for the bottom line truth, reality. I don't want anything. There's a million beliefs out there. Millions upon millions. Who's right? Ask them. Everyone that believes something is going to say they're right. You're the one that steps back and goes, wait a minute. What's going on? Who's right? And they're all competing with each other. At some point you realize, no, there's something that's bottom line cosmos that makes everything work, that everything else is based upon, and that none of them have it. The righteousness is what you're looking for. When you proceed looking for answers, you proceed with an open mind. Now, being religious and saying I believe in God and I'm going to go look for answers is absolutely not seeking with an open mind. You are seeking with a conviction to start with. That is not righteousness. Righteousness is starting with an empty mind. I don't know what's there. I'm going to go look. I'm going to probe. I'm going to mentally work with it. I'm going to figure it out until I can interact with something somehow. Repeatably, I can demonstrate it. I can show it to somebody. Now I'm going to proceed. Not based on somebody told me this and I believe it, so I'm just going to go prove that. There's a big difference. Righteousness is just looking for what is real. The truth, the bottom line truth. And if you're claiming and supernatural and all that kind of stuff, have fun with that. You can believe that, but you can't demonstrate that. Everything I'm going to talk about is demonstrable. I will not make supernatural claims. I, however, will not interfere with your own supernatural beliefs. Supernatural is to each individual. Since that is something that is non-demonstrable, you either believe in it, you don't believe in it. There's a certain way you believe in it. You can't show it to anybody. So I don't go there. And I know that there's variation and differences, and it's not even worth talking about. People just fight and argue over who's right, and nobody can show anything anyway. Why bother? That's not productive at all. Okay, if we move on, blessed are the merciful, for they will receive mercy. Okay, we actually have, we have real world. What happens if the Dalai Lama is merciful? Is China merciful towards Tibet? No. What we see again is that if you look in the world, you might think from an individual basis, if I'm merciful to somebody, I'm going to get mercy back, and that's generally the case, usually. But there are instances where people are off on some sort of, they're triggered, they're off doing something else, and it doesn't matter. There are people that just don't care. You look at this and say, well, it could be effective most of the time, but not all the time. Then you would look at it and say, why would it be a God? Why would it be so definitive then? Why is it that important if it's only like, maybe once in a while this will happen? It can't be reasoned as something in the physical world that works, but when you take it up into the psyche, again, we get 100% functionality regardless. Okay, so what would that look like? Blessed are the merciful, for they will receive mercy. Think of your own life. Now, you might be okay, you might not be an issue, but most people that are on some path, that are looking for help, that are looking for some peace in life, are carrying something that we're not okay with. We're carrying things that are hurt. We're carrying hatred, we're carrying judgment, we're carrying shame, we're carrying all manner of things. And if we can't be merciful on that stuff, we're not going to get mercy back. This is almost a cause and effect, a karma. The measure you mete unto others will be likewise meted unto you. However, it's not outward, it is inward. It is what we hold inside becomes us. It continues to emerge that way. We got cyclical things going on. We have it right here. That we need to, in order to let go of that stuff, we have to heal. And that in order to heal ourselves, then we have to be merciful on not only ourselves, but everybody that has hurt us. Without that, we're not going to come up with the forgiveness, which is not going to change the way we're storing our, the electrochemical storage of our emotional state, which creates the flow of our life that continues to emerge under those terms. Okay, moving on. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they will see God. These are difficult analogs, because I'm going to tell you right now, God does have a purpose, but God is not the purpose that we think. God is not the entity that is out in space. God is our higher being. God is that darkness. God is that blackness. God is from where everything emerges, but we're all connected from it on the other side of our massive life experience. So in order to connect with that, in order to connect with God, we have to have a pure mind. We have to be devoid of those things. We're seeing a repetition here of the idea that what we're holding up here is creating our life, and to be rid of this stuff. And what is the stuff that's there? It's the stuff that acts out that hurts us. If we get to a point where even if we're in relationships and we're never looking inward, we're constantly like, my God, what is up with these people? We're stuck. We're not seeing how we fit. We're not seeing how these cycles are happening. All of these are personally applicable. All right, I'll move on and see if I can speed this up a little bit. We've got a long way to go. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they will see God. Pure in heart, again, how do you have a pure heart? My heart pumps blood. Heart. Heart is what? Heart is my soul. Heart is pure heart. How do you have a pure something? What you have is what makes you feel a certain way. Whatever it is that makes your emotions feel a certain way. Your heart is your emotional state. Pure in heart, for they will see God. We need to be devoid, empty of the things that are not okay inside of us. We'll be happy. We will see God. We will see our higher being. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called the children of God. We need to make peace internally. Most people that can't make peace externally, you know what? They can't make peace internally. As within, so without. They're not the children of God. They're not happy, what that means. They are not, Okay, blessed are those who are persecuted for the sake of righteousness, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Now, this one does relate to your personal experience. Blessed are those who are persecuted for the sake of righteousness, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. We don't want internally any persecution from any of ourselves for the sake of righteousness. If we're looking for the truth and we're being persecuted by certain parts of us, that's not a blessing. So this one doesn't fit in the psyche. This one very much, however, relates with other Jesus material that warns you kind of that you're going to have issues if you are working for righteousness. And I will tell you exactly what happens, because I've had this experience a number of times, and it's been horrific in some cases, that as you're healing, there's a point in time over the years you're working, you're talking with people, you develop relationships, you kind of start talking about your life and what's helping out and what makes you feel good and what you've had to resolve in the past. And a lot of times that starts off really positive. And, I've talked about being molested and having issues and having to resolve it. And what that eventually worked to was some other people that had issues of their own. Somehow that things like that can touch the core of their own fear and their own shame and their own hurt. And you can tell that because they will lash out. They will persecute you for the sake of righteousness. You're saying, wow, you know what? I had a horrific life. I got molested one time and it just devastated me. Not until I found a way to resolve that was my life okay. And that makes perfect sense to me. But then you hear somebody on the other side that's like, oh man, you must like that stuff you're talking about it. What a, and then you're like, what did I just hear? What you hear is their fear. You're being persecuted for coming up with the very answers that they hide behind. You're blessed. You're doing the right thing. It doesn't feel like it at the time. Who are they? Honestly, straight up, there's a lot of them that use Jesus to show what they're hiding. Yeah. Whatever they're coming at people with and saying that it's in the name of Jesus, that's their unresolved issues. Okay, and that feeds right into the next one, number 11 here. Blessed are you when people revile you and persecute you and utter all kinds of evil against you falsely on my account. Rejoice and be glad, for your reward is great in heaven. For in the same way they persecuted the prophets who were born before you. So again, there's a lot of analogs, but they're basically saying right here that when you're doing this and you're trying to heal yourself, you're doing all of the things that people hate and they hate about it. And when they find out, or if they find out, if you can't do this in secret, in private, you will be reviled and persecuted by people who are carrying the very fears that you're trying to rid yourself of, because somehow it touches theirs and they just freak out about it. And they will say things about you. Yeah, they will do stuff to create a barrier between their fear and your truth and your courage. Rejoice and be glad, for your reward is great in heaven, for in the same way they persecuted the prophets who were before you. So they're just saying, that you're on the right track, and this happens to everybody, which of course means prophets are also analogous terms, that this means anybody who goes on the path. This is for the person who goes on the path. Prophet is the called one. If you're looking at the monomyth, the calling is the first one. That would be a prophet. A prophet would be a person that's called. They fit the monomyth. Moving along, we get into salt and light. You are the salt of the earth, but if the salt has lost its taste, how can its saltiness be restored? It is no longer good for anything, but is thrown out and trampled underfoot. This is about us again. The salt is something that they looked at very favorably. It allowed them to preserve food. It was very important for them to have salt. It was incredibly a good thing, and it had flavor and everything else for bland food. If it has lost its taste, how can its saltiness be restored? This is relative to us. We start out as the salt of the earth, but when we grow through life, we don't stay that way, do we? Something happens, and I'm talking about the people that need to go on this journey. I talk in terms like it's about everybody, but honestly, people that grew up happy and just have wonderful lives, they're not here looking for Buddha's help or Jesus's help. They have other things that they're probably doing. The people that are on this path are really looking for an answer, and it's going to very much narrow that down. What this material is going to create quite a funneling of people coming along on this path. Okay, so in a nutshell, the salt of the earth, but if the salt has lost its taste, we start out good, we go bad, how can we get back to there? It's no longer good for anything, but it's thrown out and trampled underfoot. That becomes us. We are the light of the world. A city built on a hill cannot be hid. People do not light a lamp and put it under a bushel basket. Rather, they put it on the lampstand, and it gives light to all in the house. In the same way, let your light shine before others so that they may see your good works and give glory to your Father in heaven. Boy, this is pretty much just set an example, isn't it? Let's leave it at that. I think let's just leave that one right there. It's set up a good example. The law and the prophets. Do not think that I have come to abolish the law and the prophets. I have not come to abolish, but to fulfill. For truly I tell you, until heaven and earth pass away, not one letter, not one stroke of a letter will pass from the law until all is accomplished. Therefore, whoever breaks one of the least of these commandments and teaches others to do the same will be called least in the kingdom of heaven, but whoever does them and teaches them will be called great in the kingdom of heaven. For I tell you, unless your righteousness exceeds that of the scribes and the Pharisees, you will never enter the kingdom of heaven. Okay, this one can get a little bit deep, but let's just try to hit the high points here. Do not think I have come to abolish the law or the prophets. I have not come to abolish, but to fulfill. Okay, he is Jewish, and he is coming along. The law and the prophets is everything that precedes Jesus. He's not making up anything new here. He was a Jewish rabbi that's upholding Jewish laws. He's telling people later on, I don't care what you think. I'm upholding that stuff. Whatever you think as far as new covenants and all that kind of stuff, yeah, you're just making up your own stuff. I'm telling you right now, I'm here to uphold all of those things. But what is he upholding? The monomyth template is there in Judaism. We'll leave that go right now, but he's teaching the same thing. This core teaching exists in these small examples here that I'm using, but it exists in large examples too in a storytelling culture. It's their media. And it's very meaningful in a number of different ways, but they're all built on this template. Whether anybody realizes this or not, he's holding up a whole lot more than Jewish teachings, because the Jewish teachings are also based in that template as well. He's upholding everything, Babylonian teachings and Hindu teachings. And remember, he's not a divider. He's got something else going on. He knows this core right here. The religions, you divide at that level. That's where the scribes and the Pharisees live. That's where that's where everybody lives today, which brings us into continually interpreting this verse right here. Let's take a look at it again. Do not think I've come to abolish the law. Nope, I'm upholding everything. Everything has to happen. For truly I tell you, until heaven and earth pass away, heaven and earth is going to be our own personal experience. Until those pass away, not one stroke of a letter will pass from the law until all is accomplished. If you're on this path, you must take this path. You don't go through it. You don't find healing by stopping along the way. Therefore, whoever breaks one of the least of these commandments and teaches others to do the same will be called least in the kingdom of heaven. So who's teaching us to break the commandments? These commandments are what? They're not the 10 commandments. These are the teaching commandments. These are the commandments of the template commandments. And we have to know that. That's not being put in here. There's just certain things we have to know, that the template is here. And that anybody who is teaching you to, forget that stuff. You don't turn inward. You don't defeat the enemies. You don't forgive that person. Oh my gosh, they did this to you. Are you serious? They are not doing it right. They're actually like the scribes and the Pharisees. They're understanding the teaching at the religious level, not at the nested template level. Bingo, right there. Yeah, he's letting you know. Admonishing the people who believe they know, who really honestly are carrying the template that they can't even see. The next one here we move on to is, concerning anger. You have heard that it was said to those of ancient times, you shall not murder, and whoever murders shall be liable to judgment. But I say to you that if you are angry with a brother or sister, you will be liable to judgment. And if you insult a brother or sister, you will be liable to the council. And if you say, you fool, you will be liable to the hell fire. Okay, right here, I'm just going to say this means if we have accumulated issues upstairs in our mind, things that we're dragging with us, not here right now. My neighbor, we got all that worked out over the yard, blah, blah. No, I don't have any issues. These are the issues that we're hanging from childhood that we're not going to deal with. These are the things they're talking about. If we are angry with a brother or sister, liable to judgment, we are going to be experiencing repercussions from the feelings that we are holding inside of us as long as we continue to hold them. If we move on to the critical part here. So when you are offering your gift at the altar, if you remember your brother or sister has something against you, leave your gift there before the altar and go. First be reconciled to your brother or sister and then come out and offer your gift. Come to terms quickly with your accuser. Let's stop actually right there. Let's go back. So when you are offering your gift at the altar, what are you offering a gift at the altar for? This is an analog, but this is teaching us something. We're looking for God's good graces. The gift at the altar means, God, please, here, I love you. Will you grace my life? So if I'm looking for good graces and I realize that I've got issues in my mind that are not resolved, I'm supposed to leave my gift first, stop looking for graces, go reconcile those issues first, and then come back and resolve that. Then come back and look for the graces. The good graces are going to happen when we have issues resolved. I'm going to jump in right here and just say, for anybody that's familiar with the DVD, The Secret, this right here just blows them out of the water. When they get to that point in the DVD where they're like, yeah, just that stuff is called so what? Well, the real what is what you're going to do now. In other words, forget all of that stuff and just drive ahead. While actually everybody from antiquity teaches you that if you take care of this stuff, what you're looking for is just going to flow naturally. You're working hard, dragging your baggage with you if you leave it in place. We don't want to follow that part of the DVD, The Secret. Come to terms quickly with your accuser while you are on your way to court with him, or your accuser may hand you over to the judge and the judge to the guard, and you will be thrown into prison. Truly, I tell you, you will never get out until you have paid the last penny. This is mentally internal. Come to terms quickly with your accuser. When you have an issue with somebody, take care of it right away. If you don't, you're going to hold on to it. It's going to become a judgment inside of you. It's going to be you're going to become it's going to become a part of your own prison. This is not a prison in the world. This is the prison of your life experiences. Okay, yeah, I'll keep going on. The video's getting a little long, isn't it? It has to get set up. It's not. I'm trying to accelerate it, but you know what? It's not a simple, fast thing. Moving along, concerning adultery. You have heard that it was said, you shall not commit adultery. But I say to you that everyone who looks at a woman with lust has already committed adultery with her in his heart. If your right eye causes you to sin, tear it out and throw it away. It is better for you to lose one of your members than for your whole body to be thrown into hell. And if your right hand causes you to sin, cut it off and throw it away. It is better for you to lose one of your members than for your whole body to go into hell. All right. Does anybody ever consider these literally? You would read verses like this and you look for interpretation, and you know you're on your own because people are like all over the place with it. You really don't hear these touched upon. And when you do, they're word salad. Yeah, just blabber, blabber, blabber. These have to be managed in the same way as all of the other teachings. They don't make sense in any other way. There's parts of it that do. Of course, we shall not commit adultery. Okay, yeah, you don't want to do that. That creates issues. But then the next verse is the critical one. But I say to you that everyone who looks at a woman with lust has already committed adultery with her in his heart. Now, what is a heart? We know that the heart is a part of our mind, a part of what is here. What he is saying is that it's not enough to not act out on it. That if you're thinking about it and if you're processing it, that is in the energy flow. You could sit there and feel all kinds of things and never act on them, yet you find your life flowing in such a way that those things continue to somehow be always in the forefront of life experiences. We can actually infer that just from our own life experiences. If we've gotten to the point where we realize that we have something that is cyclically going on, that is emergent from us, we can see it right there. Okay, there's a lot of analogs in here. It's also doing something that is, this is a deeper layer. It's transitioning from outward looking to inward looking. And that's kind of it appears all over the place, but it starts off with, you shall not covet your neighbor's wife, which means I shall not desire my neighbor's wife, right? That's all it means. That's a physical thing. But then the very next line, it says, it's not enough to not, but I tell you, it's not enough to not desire it. It's enough to think about it. So it just transitioned there from outward looking to inward looking. We've made a switch right there in the material that shows up in other places as well. Watch for those sorts of things. It's a visible transition. If you've been following my work, and a lot of work from a lot of people realizes that the teaching includes the idea that male and female is carnal mind and soul, spirit, conscious, subconscious. That's why things work the way they do. When the woman sins, It's not because the woman is sinning. It's because something that we have inside of us is acting out from the subconscious. And it's causing grief to the conscious. The conscious is the one that put it there. The way the stories are written, we have to unwrap them that way. So that's what's going to be happening here. I should not be divorced with my own self. That means that I'm not happy with myself. I got conflict. I've got things inside of me I want to hide. I don't like that stuff. However, my neighbor who also has a wife, everybody's got, whether you're a male or a female, you have a husband, that's your conscious, and you have a female, a wife, that's your subconscious. Everybody fits that category. These are analogous terms that are written in such a way that the culture will carry them, but are also written in such a way that it still nests the same template. We look for the hierarchy, we play it out. What is it if I have a horrible life? I don't like my wife. I am divorced from my inner self. I have a lot of pain, shame, and hurt, and things don't go my way. But I look at somebody else and I see they got a wonderful life. And instead of me fixing my life, I desire their life. I am coveting their wife. I am mentally looking for something else without resolving what I have myself, without understanding that I am simply a product, like they are, of our upbringing and our thinking and how we processed information. Coveting your neighbor's wife is going to prevent you from ever resolving your own self. We want to have a marriage between our outer being and our inner being. We don't want to have that inner conflict. So that's happening in these verses. And it's also telling us about, plucking out an eye or cutting off a hand. If you're seeing or doing things that are part of the problem, you have to dismiss yourself from the environment. Whatever it is that is affecting you, you have to get away from it. If you want to make the change, you have to decide to make the change. You got to stop desiring something else, and you have to disconnect from what is going on. Otherwise, you're going to remain in hell, right? Which means you're going to continue to have a horrific life. Okay, I'm going to stop the video right here just because it got an hour long. And it took a while to set it up. I think I should be able to finish this in another video. One more. Finish up with the Sermon on the Mount. Hope it was interesting. I'm sure it's different for a lot of people. And I hope there's people that looked at it that haven't heard it before and find it interesting. I hope so. It's theoretical, but it's consistent. It is absolutely consistent. And it squares with open-minded thinking. So, yeah, well, there you have it. It's up for each person to decide for themselves. See you in the next video.